You ever have someone try to control something they don't even own? Like really try with paperwork and threats and that little smug smile like they already won? Picture getting fined for solar panels on land that isn't even part of the neighborhood, and then watching the same people try the county, try the courts, and when that doesn't work, put a legal claim on your property like you're one of their HOA members. It sounds ridiculous until it happens to you, and then it feels, well, grossly personal. My name is Daniel, and 9 years ago, my wife Lauren and I bought 5 acres out past what used to be open pasture outside a mid-sized southern town. Not by accident, we were running away from fluorescent offices and commute gridlock. I'd spent almost 15 years in software, which is a polite way of saying I knew the sound of a bad email at 3 a.m. Lauren's a freelance graphic designer. She only needs decent internet and a pot of coffee. We wanted something that was ours, so we built it right. Solar array battery storage, a deep well, rainwater harvesting tied into irrigation, gray water into the orchard, composting to county spec. The house was passive solar, big south-facing windows, clean lines, well insulated. We paid for permits, engineering stamps. We did it like grown-ups. For 3 years it was magic. You could hear wind move through the grass at night, stars like someone scattered salt across the sky. Then developers bought the land around us and rolled in like it's their right. Bulldozers, identical beige houses with tiny lawns, a clubhouse with faux stone columns. They slapped on the name Silver Ridge Commons because developers always pick aspirational names. Before the paint dried, they formed an HOA. Our parcel deeded long before the subdivision was legally separate. No covenants, no shared easements, nothing. We triple-checked with our lawyer when construction started. We were good. We thought we were safe. At first it was neighborly enough. A couple of new families would walk by, ask about the chickens, the solar panels. We handed out tomatoes. Then the HOA had its first big election and Caleb Prescott won the presidency. Picture a retired insurance claims supervisor in his late 50s, polo shirts tucked into pleated khakis, smiling like he runs Sunday lunch for the county. He complained about mailbox colors, fence heights. A child's basketball hoop visible from the street built his platform on protecting property values. He won, and Silver Ridge turned into a compliance factory. Grass measured by rulers, paint colors, mandated, people fined. Then the letters started showing up in our mailbox. First one, your solar panels violate aesthetic guidelines, removed or screened in 30 days, $50 fine. Lauren and I laughed, thinking clerical error. 2 weeks later, chickens prohibited, $50. We ignored the first few. By the fourth letter, fines were stacking. Compost bins labeled a health hazard. Rain barrels, unsightly greenhouse, and unauthorized structure, the total up to 300 and climbing. I wrote back polite certified mail, included a copy of our deed, highlighted parcel numbers, explained we weren't part of their HOA. I sent it to their board and Evergreen Association Services, a small local management company. A week later, I'm out by the gate fixing a hinge, and Caleb walks up our gravel drive like he owns it. "So you're the ones dragging down our property values," he says. "No, hi, no, how are you? Just a declaration." I told him calmly we weren't part of the HOA. He chuckled. "That's what everyone says at first. The covenants run with the land around here," he told me. "Sooner or later you'll comply." It wasn't anger, it was certainty. Over the next months, the letters ramped up, sometimes 2 a week, fines accrued past $4,000. Then a demand letter from their lawyer. Lauren and I hired our own attorney who sent them a cease and desist explaining they had zero jurisdiction. For a few months, things quieted, and then the county started showing up. Health department complaining about composting, building inspector about the solar array, animal control about the chickens. Each inspector complimented our design, one even asked for our specs. It cost time, stress, paperwork. And then they crossed a line. Silver Ridge filed a lien against our property for unpaid HOA fines. They put a legal claim on land they did not own. Our lawyer filed a motion. The judge tossed the lien fast and ordered the HOA to cover our legal fees. I thought that would end it, but it didn't. Caleb cornered me at a gas station a week later and jabbed a finger into my chest. Fluorescent lights overhead, the smell of gasoline, and said, "This isn't over. I will make you comply." In his eyes, I saw it. This wasn't about windmills and hens. It was about control. 5 acres of independence sitting next to his tightly curated neighborhood, and I existed outside his reach. Standing there with the pump ticking and a faint smell of motor oil, something in me unhooked from defense and leaned toward offense. Here's a point most people miss about HO. As the board makes a lot of noise, but the management company makes the machine run. They send the letters, collect the dues, handle vendor contracts. Silver Ridge used Evergreen's small local owner run. I started poking around. Evergreen was Martin Feld's business, a lifestyle company managing a few communities' consistent income-tight margins. I mentioned it to my friend Eric over beer's commercial real estate guy, and he joked, "Buy the company, fire your own violation notices." I didn't laugh. Lauren looked at me across the table and said quietly, "You're not actually thinking that, are you?" I was. I was very much thinking it. I set up an LLC, had a broker approach Martin discreetly, and he was ready to sell health reasons, burnout, wanting to retire. The asking price was reasonable if you've saved for years and you don't have a mortgage. Before I signed, our lawyer reviewed Evergreen's contracts. One clause stopped me cold. The management contract gave Evergreen broad operational authority, the right to conduct financial audits, to present findings directly to homeowners, and a termination clause that made it nearly impossible to fire the company without an 18-month notice and a fee equal to 2 years' management. Our lawyer looked at me and said, "Your HOA president basically handed operational control to whoever owns this company." 3 months later, I walked out of a quiet conference room into a late Friday afternoon with the keys to Evergreen in my pocket. Lauren poured us bourbon that night and said, "This is either the smartest thing you've ever done or the dumbest." I told her, probably both. I didn't announce anything. Monday morning, I sat in Evergreen's cramped office going through files, vendor invoices, compliance logs, treasurer reports. What I found wasn't cinematic embezzlement, but it was ugly. Prescott Outdoor Solutions landscaping invoices totaling $12,000 billed at a rate nearly double the regional average. Community outreach line items that added up to $9,000 in steakhouse dinners. A security system upgrade invoice that included a high-end projector and surround sound items that made no sense for a security install and weren't listed for resident use because most weekends the clubhouse was locked for private board functions. Questionable spending hovered around $42,000. Not a Ponzi scheme, but enough to jack up dues and bleed trust. Compliance logs told the worst story. Tom and Louise Evergreen's field inspectors repeatedly noted that our parcel wasn't on the HOA map and recommended no action, and their notes were overridden by direct instruction from the board president to keep sending violation letters. One of Tom's emails said straight up, "This may expose us to liability." No one listened. I called Tom and Louise into my office and told them simply, "I'm the new owner, and any enforcement actions against Parcel X stop immediately." Tom exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for years. "Thank God," he said. "We knew it wasn't right." That was the moment I realized the machine ran on people's fear and complicity. Silver Ridge had its quarterly meeting the following Thursday. By contract, Evergreen had to attend, and now I was the guy who had to sit there. I put on a blazer, left the flannel at home, and walked into that faux stone clubhouse. There were 40 homeowners in folding chairs. Caleb shuffled papers at the front, polo tucked confident. He started his litany about protecting property values and escalating enforcement against non-compliant properties adjacent to the community. A woman in the second row raised her hand. "How much have we spent on legal action against properties that aren't even in the HOA?" Caleb froze. I stood up. "I'm Daniel Harper, the new owner of Evergreen Association Services." The room went still, that kind of silence, like a pause in music. I handed out a neatly bound packet and began walking them through the audit. Prescott Outdoor Solutions, $12,000. Outreach dinners, $9,000. Security upgrade projector and sound unnecessary. Murmurs swelled into questions. "Isn't Prescott owned by your brother-in-law?" someone asked. Caleb's jaw tightened. He tried to call it a smear campaign, accused me of sabotage. I opened the contract and read Section 7B aloud. Evergreen retains authority to conduct audits and present findings directly to homeowners for fiduciary transparency. "You signed this," I said. He looked as if someone had shown him a photograph of himself doing the thing he'd been denying. By the end of the night, homeowners were voting. A motion of no confidence passed. Caleb left in a fury, and the interim board formed from people who actually seemed to care about transparency. The reconciliation confirmed $42,000 of questionable expenses. Settlements were reached. Prescott was replaced by a reputable landscaping firm at half the cost. The pool's pump was finally fixed and the clubhouse reopened to residents. Most tellingly, the new board formally recognized that our 5 acres were not and had never been part of Silver Ridge, all fines voided. Some folks shook my hand and said, "We were afraid to push back." One man leaned in later and said quietly, he retaliated against anyone who questioned him. That stuck with me. I ran Evergreen for another year, cleaned up processes, paid Tom and Louise what they deserved, and when it felt right, I sold the company to Tom. He had the integrity for it. Caleb sold his house and moved away. Folks say he blamed politics and conspiracy. Maybe that's easier for him. Maybe it's what keeps him sleeping. Sometimes I still wonder, did I go too far? Buying a company to stop one man from overreaching isn't subtle. I could have kept fighting in court. People say I escalated. But here's what I keep coming back to: systems don't abuse people. People abuse systems. And sometimes the only way to stop that is to get inside the machine and turn the gears yourself. That realization isn't noble, it's practical. It felt like undoing a bully by reading the bully's playbook and then using it against him. So what do you think? If you were in my shoes, would you have stayed on defense, writing cease and desist and letting the machine chew up your time? Or would you have bought the machine? Was my move justice or just revenge in a suit? Drop your take in the comments. Tell me if you think I crossed a line or if you think I did what needed doing. And if you've ever tangled with an HOA power trip or any system that was supposed to protect people but ended up doing the opposite, tell me that story too. I read every single comment. Because sometimes the most satisfying victory isn't breaking the rules, it's knowing them better than the person trying to use them against you.
Cảm ơn các bạn đã xem video.